Today, I've asked Brian Walsh from TOA Global, who are based in Surfers Paradise, to join us. And we had a discussion beforehand about sort of what he could come along and talk about. And he's going to talk about how to build culture while working remotely. And I do work with TOA Global, full disclosure, but they always, Brian and Nick always have very insightful conversations and experiences and insights to share on people management, growing your team. And while some of us may be even micro businesses, we're still growing our team in terms of who we're dealing with and the people around us who we're connected with. And I think that that's really important to remember. And I know that from past conversations and future conversations, this is I can't know from future conversations. I know from past conversations that this is something that some people sometimes we have challenges with, and especially now that we are moving into remote working, and I don't know how long this will last for, but I think it is going to last for some time. So I have some questions that I've got some questions that I'm going to ask Brian, but as I go along, let's keep it fluid, and if you've got questions along the same vein, jump in if you want, or put them in the chat area and I'll ask them. I'll highlight to you, Brian, Jono's joining us. Hey, Jono. Jono's joining us from South Africa.
Oh, hi, Jono.
So, Brian.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Good evening. So, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I really appreciate it, and really looking forward for the next 2 hours. Brian's like, it's not going to go for 2 hours, but it might.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And before we get started and talking to you about this topic, could you please just briefly share with us who you are, where you're from, and just a bit about Brian Walsh?
So Brian Walsh, I'm the country leader for TOA Global. I'm Irish, as you haven't guessed. So my background is I was a hedge fund accountant for a number of years with JP Morgan. Then I moved into the technology space. So I worked for PayPal for about 7 years, built up their small business part in the early days in Ireland for the UK. Managing the UK operations, and then relocated to the Sydney office and built out the same in Sydney. And then at that stage, myself and my family decided we were going to stay and live in Australia. So at the time, Intuit were launching in Australia, and I was asked would I be part of that team. And yeah, we launched Intuit, and then I guess that was the history in itself. And then here I am in TOA.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'll also share with everyone that Brian recently gained his Australian citizenship. So congratulations on that. And we're going to have a vote towards the end about whether we want Brian to sing the Australian national anthem.
Oh.
Emma's already voted yes.
So my wife, when we did our Australian citizenship last week, and my wife's a teacher's aide for kids with very high disabilities. So she knows that the national anthem, of course, inside out. My kids know it. My wife's able to do it in sign language, and I'm the only person in the room that has to read it off the board. So apologies, I have to learn this.
Well, you have time to Google it while we talk. I'm not letting you out of it.
I'm male. I can't multitask.
Thank you, Brian. So now on to the topic that we're discussing today, sort of people, how to build a culture while working remotely. Culture is a bit of a buzzword these days. When you refer to the word culture, what do you mean?
For me personally, what do I mean by culture? I actually think it's the business's personality. That's how I would refer to it. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about and always have been. I think culture is one of the, getting your culture right in your business is so fundamental to actually building a high performing team. And that doesn't matter if it's one person or 100 people. Getting your culture right, it's being aligned on your values. It's it's how you make decisions. So for me, that's what culture is.
Yeah, and I think that people have mentioned to me they're struggling with identifying their client base, and one of the things that we've drawn on a few times is their personality. What is their personality like? So why is culture important within an organization?
So culture for me in an organization, it's what drives the business in a lot of senses. I think that if I'm a firm believer that employees come first. Employees always come before the customer, because if you have happy employees and you have if you have a really good healthy culture in place, then your employees are going to provide an outstanding service to your clients. And it's also really good for retention. If you have a good culture, people, it's one of the reasons they come to work. It's what they believe in. It's what they love. It's what they see when they come in through the door to work, or it's what they see when they open up a Zoom link to talk to their team. And in this, which is so important at the moment, with so many people having to work in remote environments, so much separation with people. And, in our business, especially, we have 1,600 people that are all working from home. And that's tough to manage. And, you really have to make sure that people are engaged. I mean, health and wellness and everything comes into this. And one of the things I would say is, for a good culture in a remote organization, it all starts with trust. So you have to trust you have to trust your team. And if you trust your team, and then that helps develop the culture, because culture comes from within. It's developed by your team as well, with good leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I left a company that I left it because I loved it so much and I loved it more than they did. And I was like, the balance is incorrect here. And I need to go and build my own company that I can love because I love it more than they do. So do ping pong tables, branded t-shirts and donut Fridays equal culture?
Look, some people buy into that. I think they're props. That's what I would say.
Ooh,
Look,
props.
I think, look, ping pong tables, Donut Friday, and in this environment, Uber Eats Friday is, they are important, but they are not what drives a culture. I mean, to build a good, healthy culture, that comes from good leadership. And if you have good values and you're a good leader, and you have a vision and you believe in your people, well, it's very easy to build a really good culture and a high performing culture.
So how do we nurture a supportive and strong culture while actually working remotely?
Yeah, so I guess this is actually a question I've been asked quite a lot lately by a lot of people, and this is not just because we have a lot of remote employees, but it's also for a lot of firms, and not even in the accounting industry, but other industries have reached out about this. Um, Look, what's happening at the moment is so many people are working in remote environments and they feel they're siloed. They feel they're getting lonely, and that should not be the case. I think this community group is an absolutely amazing idea, and there's a number of these kind of groups that just really give people a place where they can come together, they can talk, they can learn. It's like the virtual offices, I would call it. And I feel what's important is having your daily huddles. So if it's just one person, if it's 10 people, it's 20 people, have your morning huddle. Make sure you're checking in with your teams regularly. Make sure you have the technology set up that you can actually interact with everybody. And it's interesting just having the little bit of banter throughout the day, the emojis, the fun remarks. They're all things that make us feel like we're back in the office. Like when we had the lockdown in Queensland, we had to disperse the team here. Look, we're very lucky to be able to be back in the office. But while we were out, there was the team, they were lonely, and it's the same as our teams that are in the Philippines. There's a lot of people that are stuck out in remote areas that are, they struggle, and you start to struggle, and then that can, impact your mental health. It impacts your performance, and it has a knock-on effect. So having those huddles, regular check-ins, having the fun throughout the day, have fun online just the way you would in your office. One of the things we did recently, which was really cool, was we had a game of virtual bingo across our business, and there was so much engagement from all the team. And there was one person I spoke to yesterday who she's based in, I think she's just based outside of Clark, and she said the highlight of her month was actually the virtual bingo. And for me, that was, such a little thing can make such a big difference. And this girl, like, she hasn't left her house in months.
You know what you need to do? You need to do a running, how do you pack your dishwasher session with them. I think that was the highlight for us, the unexpected highlight for us. How do you balance huddles with micromanaging and overwhelming them with micromanagement?
So I have to be totally honest in this one. A pet hate of mine is micromanagement. I just, if it goes down that road with anybody, I feel that there's fundamental issues. And before it ever gets to that stage, I'm a real firm believer in coaching and mentoring people. And if people can't be coached and mentored, well, then they're in the wrong position. If it comes to micromanagement, and all the people that I have had that have managed various teams over the years, I've always made it very clear that I don't ever see them micromanaging. And if it comes to micromanagement, what you're actually doing is you're damaging someone's confidence, because they're obviously in the wrong role. So you should never put somebody in that situation where they're in the wrong role. You should either find them a role that suits them, that they can perform in, or you help them find something else in a different organization. They should not get to the stage of micromanagement. To the point of how you managing people in remote teams. Look, I think balancing huddles especially in a busy environment. And look, we're all extremely busy people. I mean, and especially at the moment. I mean, you got the work you guys are doing across the board is unbelievable. And I keep thinking of every time I talk to somebody in the accounting and bookkeeping industry, my heart really goes out, because I can see the amount of work that you guys are having to do, the hours you're having to put in, and you've invested so much in your businesses to be able to get time back in your days to spend with your families and to do other things. But at the moment, that's all gone out the window. And then to have to manage a team on top of that, it's difficult. But what I will say is, if you take that time to actually have your morning huddle, or whether it's an afternoon catch up, and then to be, to have your phone open with Teams, Slack, whatever it is, keep, messaging throughout the day, having that fun, but also make sure you're very clear on what the expectations are. So it's not micromanaging, but you have to be clear on this is the new world. This is what the expectation is, and this is what we need to deliver by a certain date. And if you set those clear expectations, people will deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And John's chat put in the chat area that he 100% agrees with you. And Carla's put in the chat area that her team didn't do well in the virtual bingo.
I heard about it the next day. They told me all about it, and they said, "Oh, we did terrible." And I said, "Oh well, I'm sure there'll be another one."
Yeah, I think this is going to be run again, but actually I think we're looking to try and put a twist on it and include the clients. Yeah.
That's what I said. I said, I missed out. I wanted to be part of that.
So I didn't know about this until I heard from a team member yesterday. And I'm like, I didn't even get to join this.
Yeah. I think that would be a great idea. That would build a bit of fun, obviously, within the TOA team, but also with including the clients involved. It'd be good.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, Carla, I mean, it's that's just something very little. And we actually have a bit of a tech genius in the Philippines who was actually able to design that program to do the virtual bingo, which is pretty awesome, and someone that did this on their own time. But we're actually looking now to see if there's other things we can build that we can do these kind of virtual team building events and doing all this. But I mean, you don't have to, if it's small teams, like you can do other things that, other fun games, while you're in these virtual environments.
Yeah. And I think that the virtual teams can be microscopic, can be very small, and they can be very large as well, and both have a need and an importance in the area. So, Brian, we currently have a spectrum of traditional office, co-working space, through to the remote worker sitting in absolute isolation. How do you manage the team culture when they all of the different people may be more productive or less and effective in those different environments? And especially now that you might have found, that person who's now out remote is more productive or effective. How do we manage that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point you make. So, I guess because of this position I'm in, I get to see this across the board from, hundreds of firms across our own business, and to see how, productivity is across the board. What I have noticed is, yes, there is some productivity gains with people in a remote environment. They are short. They're initial from what I'm seeing. So at the start, there's great productivity. It's a new environment. It's like starting a new job. You've got that. You've got the spring in your step. Your new environment. But after a while, it starts to decline slightly. And that's what I have noticed, and that's where the working from home environment, yes, it can be great for some people, but for others, it can actually be quite damaging. It can be very negative in the productivity. It can be difficult to manage. There's a lot of distractions around people, and in some, like, not so much in our industry, but in some industries that I have been, the people I've spoken to, the client experience has been impacted. But I think when I've worked in the likes of the WeWorks, I've worked in every sort of situation there is. I have to say, personally, I'm very productive when I'm in the office, but I'm also quite productive when I'm at home. So I work from home 1 day a week, and that 1 day a week I can be very productive because I have my day designed the way I want it. But if I'm there 5 days of the week, what happens to me is I work a lot more hours than I would work when I'm in the office, and that's not always a good thing.
No.
So so personally, I prefer to be in an office environment. I get a lot of energy from people. I guess, and I always have done. I've always been around, I like to be around the team. So that means a lot to me. Even when we were, in lockdown and working from home, I found myself reaching out to the team quite a lot throughout the day. So I was setting the times to reach out and spend time with the team and help them where they needed help, because I could see and I could feel where there was days where the productivity was completely dropping. And it was down to energy levels, what was going on, because you may have had a fight with your partner, but you're still in that same environment that you've had that argument in. You're not moving out of that environment. Where I could have an argument with my wife Ruth in the morning, and then I go to work, and then I think about it, send flowers, go home, apologize. But no, not to. But you're in that environment where things are happening, where there's actually stressors in your life. And I'm not saying that's always the situation, but stressors build up. And if you can't remove yourself from that environment, that can have impact on people. So that's, I think, my piece around,
so we took change of environment's good for production and effectiveness, and we're sorry, and we send flowers. Thank you.
But to say that, I mean, there's a lot of people that like there's a lot of people that work differently in different environments. So I think we also have to recognize that. And, we have to understand that, yes, that, Brian working in the WeWork is much more productive than Brian working there.
Yeah, and I think understanding that and appreciating that.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see that evolution is actually happening, and people seem to be both appreciating it for themselves and appreciating it for their staff. Brian, what comes first? Great people who establish a healthy culture, or a healthy culture that attracts great people?
So that can come hand in hand. But I would say, if you're great people build great culture. Okay. I would, I'm a firm believer in that, good culture comes from within. And if you have good people, they will create an awesome culture. Like I have to say the office here in the Gold Coast, we have an absolutely amazing culture, and that just hasn't come from anywhere. I mean, that comes from how the team interact with each other, how the team celebrates success, how the team pick each other up when they're down. You're talking at the start of this about I think it was Cara doing her exercises. One of the guys here today, a bit down. Someone else has decided, right, and there's a lot of actually ex-fitness trainers in our business, has said, right, we're going to do leg day. And it's like, no. And he goes, that'll get this mood out of you. So it's like, so they've gone off they left here early to go to the gym to do leg day. I can see now Paul won't be able to walk tomorrow. But they stand behind each other, they work together, and that to me is amazing people building an amazing culture.
Absolutely, but I'm not employing a guy who wants me to do leg day. But apart from that was great. Jono, would you like to take yourself off mute and ask that question? You just popped into the chat area.
Yeah, sure. Brian, my question was, do you think, people in your team dictate the culture, or the culture is reliant on those people, or can you build any culture with any kind of people that you have? That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And this is, I'm a bit of a geek for academia. And a number of years ago, I studied a bit around culture, and there was a few articles written in the Harvard Business Review around this. And one of the things that, after a lot of research, is you can't just decide what culture you want and implement it tomorrow. That's not how it works. Culture it starts with good leadership. Okay. And it's, you have to be, for me personally, I'm very open. What you see is what you get. I run a very flat structure, always have done. And with that, feedback for me is a gift. So open feedback across the board. So people start to feel that they're part of it. And then the culture then comes, after with this, because people feel like that they're part of something. And, you have to be very clear on your values and your vision. And if people can see and believe in your vision and you're taking them on a journey, well, that creates a culture in itself. And like, there's plenty of times where, I go off track, and my team will be the first people to turn around and say, Brian, keep a real conversation, feedback. And I love that. And that creates that open environment. We all trust each other. We have great fun. And we celebrate, as I said, we celebrate together, we cry together. Like I know so much about my team, like so much that's like into intimate details, and it's because we're all open with each other. So I hope that answers your question. But the one thing is, you can't just decide to change your culture tomorrow. It's an evolution, and it takes time to build to the culture you want. For me, when I joined TOA, one of the things that I knew as I was building this team is I knew that where we would be in 6 months' time. I knew what it would look like in 12 months' time. So I had that vision. And the team, like, it's exactly as we talked about it a year ago when I joined TOA. We are at that point now. And when I call it, we've a great team. I don't know if you've ever read the book Good to Great, but Jim Collins, good to great. We're at the good, and now we're going to great.
And for those listening in, you probably don't know that in the time that Brian has joined TOA, they have had enormous issues in terms of they've had, was it an earthquake and then a cyclone over in the Philippines, as well as all the things that have been impacting us globally. So you've really navigated some big issues, unexpected issues that a business would not normally navigate. A 1 in a 10-year episode in perhaps the time you've joined them.
Yeah, I've been lucky.
The luck of the leprechaun.
Yeah.
Carla, would you like to take yourself off mute and ask your question there?
Absolutely. So Brian, I've obviously sat through a lot of these kind of sessions with TOA as well, but from what I gather, the hiring side of things is really important, and not just going through the process of are they academically capable of completing the role that you're hiring for, but looking at other factors, interpersonal skills and things like that, but trying to get that the fit that is going to be right for your culture. So do you have any tips on what you could do in that space to try to make that process more streamlined, or what you would ask them or have them do, those kind of things?
Yeah, so Carla, would you be referring to like hiring somebody onshore for your team?
I think I'll just go broadly. Just more so. So as you know, I've got some TOA team members, but I've had team members here as well. So I guess I'm just more of a broad fit, because from what I understand, it doesn't matter so much around where you live, what your background is, all that sort of thing. Culture comes from a different team culture, or the culture of the business comes from a different place, and like you said, it's values and those kind of more meaningful things. So how do you then go through that sort of hiring process with somebody to see that they fit into your culture before? Because I think it kind of fits in with what Jono was saying around can anybody just fit in your culture? Because realistically, if you don't have the same values, how do you get to the bottom of that and at the hiring stage?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, look, there's people that certainly wouldn't fit our culture whatsoever. But I'll be completely frank for myself. From when I hire, and I'm very particular how I hire. I don't initially hire for culture. That's not what I go about. I don't look for academia. I start off I'd always start off the interview process with, first of all, the thing you need to do is set out a job description. So what do I want to achieve? Okay, what do I want to get out of the person I'm going to hire? So I write out a clear job description for myself, so I understand. I can say, right, okay, this is why I need this person. Once you have that sort of job description, you can turn that into an advertisement, because then you can put your ad on Seek or wherever you need, because you know what you're looking for. And when you write that job description, that actually becomes as we would call it, the outcome profile for the person you're hiring. Okay, so when you're writing that job description, you may look at it and say, well, that's not what I'm actually looking to achieve. That's not what I want this person to do. And as you add it in, you realize that you mightn't be looking for you mightn't be looking for the person you thought you were looking for, if that makes sense. Then you go into your advertisement. You advertise. You then select down to the key candidates that fit the criteria you're looking for. Then I would phone screen. So have an initial 15-minute conversation just to really get the feel. And after a while, you get quite good at this. So you have a conversation, and it's, you talk about both a bit about their, I guess, their professional background, but also try to get to know them. Try to also just have the conversation about, what did you do today? What are you doing at the weekend? Did you have a good weekend? You kind of then see how open they are to talking what they like doing. And then once you're happy with that piece, you'll select down. You may be left with 3 or 4 candidates. You go then to a face-to-face interview. Have that face-to-face interview, but always make sure you're drilling into the competencies that you need to fit that role. All right. And once you feel that you're comfortable that this person can achieve those competencies, it's always good to get a second opinion. So if you have somebody that can do a second interview for you, that's great. Now, you may think this is OTT, but at the end of the day, this is somebody that's coming in to run your business, or to work with you in your business and to represent you for your clients. So you need to be stringent on what you're doing. So if you can get that second interview, awesome. Get that, and do a scoring. Try and pick out the key things you want. You score it. Don't show it to the other person. Let them score that person, and then look at your scores and decide on what an acceptable score would be. And then throughout that process, you'll realize that you'll know if that person gets to that stage of the interview, that person's definitely going to fit your culture, because you wouldn't have taken them so far down without feeling that they will work. I'll work well with this person. I'm looking forward to working with this person. If it's a very senior role, we will get people to do a video. So we'd set questions. They would do a video and they would answer a couple of questions on the video. They can be great fun, but it also it tests certain things as well. But that's really the interview process that I would pretty much take. And I'm personally, I've built quite big team. I've built teams up into the 100, and I've always been part of every interview process. There's only one person in my career really to date that I've said, no, I'm happy with your decisions. And sorry, 2 people. And the second is one of the team that I have here now. It's the second person. For me to let go was quite hard. And I was interested in Craig, our CEO. He came back from leave and he turned around and he said, oh, did you hire a person for that role? And I said, no, I didn't. I said, Sean did. And he looks at me and he goes, you mean you didn't get involved? And I said, no, I took your advice and I stood back. And he was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. But so that's
okay. That's interesting, because I guess going through that process, like you said, make sure that they've got they're capable of achieving the outcomes that you're actually wanting to fulfill in that position. And then is it something that then through other ways of process, once they're onboarded in the team, that you can start building out that cultural alignment through educating them around your values and sharing your mission and making sure that you have those kind of conversations? Is that when you sort of because I guess the thing is that whilst you could go through, and like you mentioned, that you, after going through all those processes, you would hope that you've gotten a good understanding of whether they're going to fit culturally, but it might not show through that process, is my devil's advocate sort of view on it. That if you went through all of that and then got to the point where they started, is that something that you can then build? If they don't culturally fit to start with, can that develop over time, I guess?
Look, I'd never force my culture down anyone's throat. It's really what I would say is, and look, I don't get my recruitment 100% right, and I don't think anyone does. But if you go through this process, you start to, as you're questioning someone, you're questioning based on your values in a lot of cases. So even when you're going through, you're looking at certain competencies, you're actually the questions you will be asking will be very, very much aligned with the values you have in your business. And they'll be aligned with your values as well as the interviewer. So by going through that process, you generally get it right. When they join the business, I've had people that join and they've come from, I guess, major financial services industries backgrounds where it's very regimental, and then they come into this business where, I'm allowed to talk, I'm allowed to share my ideas, I'm actually asked to share my ideas. I'm being asked for feedback. That can be difficult, but it's and that will evolve, and people will feel if they're the right people for the role, they will actually just grow into that culture because they'll see the fun people are having around them. They'll see how people support each other. They become a supporter. They become somebody that works with the team. For me, even though we have various different teams, it's one team. And every time we meet or do anything, it's one team, one goal. Yes, each area has, different KPIs and different things to do, but it's one team, one goal, and everyone chips in, everyone gets involved with and supporting everybody. And that's it's an agile environment. And that's, you'll know very, very quickly if somebody's fitting into that or not.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much for that, Brian. Now, Emma, you had a question. Are you ready to jump in and ask your question? No, unmute yourself. Yep, you're off from mute.
Thank you. Hi, Brian. How you going?
Hi, Emma. How are you?
Good. Well, obviously, like stemming from today, I'm interested in, I suppose, learning more about TOA Global. And my question was as well is creating a virtual team and based in Australia. So like during COVID, we already had a VA that was remote previous to COVID. But now I've taken on another, I suppose, like employee, but as a subcontractor, but in regional areas because I'm based in regional to be able to, but yeah, it's the timing of when you're able to, trialing them before you put them, telling your clients about them type of thing, because yeah, you want stability. So, you're trialing them out to make sure they're the right fit, but then it's, I just wanted to know, how, you make sure how long is that trial period and how do you guys work? Because I suppose I've always had this mindset and mentality, and that's just my ethics. It's just me and how my makeup of always, sourcing work in Australia, not overseas. And that's just because I work with small businesses and I feel that's just my view. But I have had experience recently, like implementing Practice Protect, which obviously the owners and that are in Australia, but some of their staff are based in the Philippines. But the experience with them was very positive. So, in saying that, and when we're talking about cultures, like there's that other element, because we have cultures within our practice, but then you have cultures from where their country of origin is and the way our language is spoken and how to communicate that effectively. So I feel, and I suppose with your client, how that would impact on the change, because I feel nervous about anything of outsourcing or anything moving overseas that you're using to your clients because of the fear of the risk of, the client.
Different culture being involved. Yes,
that's right. Yes. Because even with my software, like most of it are used, and some clients don't care, zero, if it's not, the server's not in Australia, they are fine, and I'm sure they have the privacy laws and everything in the US, but they're different. So, we are very strict in that relation to clients that, most tax software, Handysoft is based in Australia and Amazon. But in saying that, Practice Protect does help with that to eliminate that. So it's just, I guess it's like the whole Kpis changing people's mindset and attitude, but slowly, like little nibbles.
So how do you navigate different multiculturalism, employing multiculturalism in the workforce, and it may be outsourced multiculturalism?
Yeah.
And then bringing that to your clients. Are you okay?
Yeah. So I actually took a couple of things away from this one. Okay. So first off, I'm always a supporter of local, purchasing local. But just so you're aware, there was a Bond University survey done only recently, where they surveyed accountants and bookkeepers across Australia. And what came out of that, one of the key things that came out of that survey that was a big aha to Bond University when they did it, was that the firms that were outsourcing properly were the firms that were growing onshore. The firms that were not outsourcing were the firms that were staying stagnant and just growing very slowly locally. Okay, so that's just to address that. Take that first part.
Yeah, cool.
The second part then is around, and I fully behind you on this, about where your servers are and the security. And this is a big question for a lot of people. And yes, Practice Protect is a solution to help you there. So a lot of the technology that we work with it's within AWS, or has their servers in. Most of the servers are actually within APAC. So Xero have a server that's based in Singapore. So it's all within the APAC region. So you're very secure. With TOA, you get we provide insurance, so we provide that level of protection. We have bank level security in our facilities. We use Practice Protect, like you spoke about there. So team members, no matter how much you trust them, both either onshore or offshore, they're behind a firewall. Okay, and then managing the multicultural piece. I would never, if I hire someone, I'm never afraid to tell them, no matter where they are in the world, who my clients are going to be dealing with, because I've hired them. And I've hired them for a reason, and I'm going to trust them. Okay. Now, does that work out 100% of the time? No. But 99.9% of the time, it does work out. But what you need to make it work properly, and there's people on the call that are do this very, very well, is you need to put the effort into training. Okay, so at the start, you need to put time into training. That is so important. If you just think you're just going to shove work out and get results back, it's not for you. It's not going to work that way. And for us, to address one thing, people think of outsourcing or dedicated outsourcing, and they're thinking of cheap labor. Don't be thinking about cheap labor. I mean, some of the best accounting qualifications come from the Philippines. There are some amazing accountants out there, and I know there's people on this call that can vouch for that. But there's you have to put in that training. You have to put in those daily huddles. You have to spend time with your team. They have to be treated like the person sitting next to you. And there's plenty of technology to help you with that.
Yeah, because I know one of my friends that I met during COVID, who has 2 of her team members are through you guys. Yeah, and they are they're listed on her site as her employees. And I just think that's amazing. Like that in itself, I think that's, from the other aspect, I think that's fantastic. Like that's pretty cool that, you can still feel like you're still part of the team, even though you're physically not next to each other. Yeah. And I think that in its aspect in itself is fantastic to create.
And Emma, when you actually get, if you do ever decide to have a global team, and you ever get the chance to, I know can't do it right now, but you ever get the chance to travel to the Philippines and spend time with your team, you will really, you get immersed in their culture. You get immersed in, I guess their day to day, and it's a great opportunity to see how they work, the environments they work in. Like we're not a typical BPO. Like our facilities are, they're not like just desks everywhere. We could probably cut down our facilities by 3 offices if we were just to put desks everywhere. But that's not how we run our business. We run our business, like you go into our offices in Clark and you'll find there's pool tables, there's table tennis tables. We actually have one of our offices in Clark has this massive makeup room. So this gives me 70% of our staff are female, so they can go in there, and it's like these things you see in the movies in Hollywood, the lights going around, and they sit in there and they do their makeup. So it's all about, for us, it's all about the employees. It's about their experience. We want to be the employer of choice. We want to create an environment where our the people you hire are going to be the most productive for you. And it's also, they are your team. Okay, so it's not that you're going to have a different person each day. They are your team.
Yeah, yeah, that's what's great. Yeah, about it. That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that insight.
Thank you for your question, Emma. I can see you can hear your kids in the background doing a protesting there. So I'm not sure if we have anyone here at the moment who this might be relevant for, but maybe for people listening in and it might be a relevant question for them. If you're in a business and you want to actually influence the culture upwards, is that possible?
So managing upwards?
Yeah, managing upwards. You can imagine I'm the type of person who likes to.
Yeah. Yes, certainly. Look, not everybody is a great leader. Okay, there's plenty of CEOs, there's plenty of business owners that aren't, that they just aren't great leaders. But they can bring people into their organization. They can hire people that they know that can come in and it can be hard to hire that person and find that person, but you bring that person in that brings that spring in their step, that brings that culture with them. And you can kind of step back from those people and let them lead the people. And you can just rethink about the strategy of your business, where you're going. And if, and that's how, working with a lot of people that, are, founders, CEOs, and knowing how they know that they need to build this they need to build a culture. They need to have a culture that people believe in and are going to follow. And they know they're not the people for it. If they can recognize that early and bring the right people in, well, then yes, that will work. The other thing, and maybe this is the question I think maybe you were asking, is can somebody on my team influence the culture of the business? Most certainly. Culture comes from within. And I will say that the culture in this business is not a result of me in the ANZ piece. It's a result of the team. The team believe in the vision, they believe in the values, and they have built the culture themselves. And that's not me. People will look and they'll say, "Oh, you've built such a great culture." No, that team have built such a great culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Brian. So leadership is absolutely about inspiring action, but it is also about guarding against misaction. That's a quote from Simon Sinek, which will make Amar happy. There, I told you, make him happy. What recourse do you need to do if someone starts messing with the culture?
So Simon Sinek, if COVID hadn't happened, I would have seen him in Sydney.
Oh.
I had the ticket.
I would have probably been there as well.
Yeah, so this is important for any leader to make sure that they are keeping an eye on how things are running. Look, we're all business owners or business leaders in some way or another. So we have our finger on the pulse. So when you know somebody is messing with your culture, and usually messing with your culture means that they've just come out of alignment. All right, something's happened that they're not happy with what's happened. It's a change we've made in the organization, or it's someone new's been hired and they're doing better than them, and it's like they feel threatened. That's usually when somebody comes out of line, and what they do, what they say and how they act can impact the culture. But one of the things that you can do, if you do it well and you have a really good culture and everybody in the organization is aligned, which is not always the case, the team actually can bring that person back into alignment very easily and very quickly. Now, if that doesn't happen, for me, as I said, feedback's a gift. Feedback comes both ways, and it's a keep it real conversation. That's how it is. And we all have them at some stage or another. We've all been in the position some stage or another where we're that person that feels a little bit, maybe disgruntled, or something's happened, or I don't agree with this change. Like everyone's been there at some stage in their life. So reflect on that and reflect back on how you manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Brian. So if someone is listening in and they feel that they recognize they actually need to do work on their actual business culture, What is the first, and this may be not the right word, but what's the first task you would suggest that they do?
First thing they need to do is be honest with themselves. You know, have that, I guess, what you call it, the coming to Jesus moment with yourself, and really think, okay, what have I built a culture that is not what I want? Or is it a case that the team have built a culture that's not aligned with my values? And once you take the step back and reflect on that, then it's okay, what kind of a culture am I looking to achieve? What is my vision? And go back to knowing what your vision is, going back to what your why. And I think, actually someone that I listen to quite a lot is Ali Garrett, and she always talks about her why. She has a really cool thing. Every client that she takes on, the first thing she asks them is, what is your why? And then afterwards they get a postcard with their why on it, so they know, they're open. So I think it's really awesome. And you just need to know the why. And then the first thing you need to do then is really define your values, your vision, what you want to do. It really depends on your team size as well. Like the bigger the team, the harder this is. The smaller the team, a little bit easier because you can do it together as a team. The larger the team, there's a little bit of top-down approach. But then it's about, you have to really instill trust with your team, and it's really then you pick the leader that can be the best leader for your business if it's not you, and it's usually someone within your business.
I love that. Pick the best leader who can lead your business if it's not you. So that would be being quite honest with yourself about that.
Yeah, that's very difficult. That's a very big step for many people.
Yeah. And if you do it, you've got to keep your eyes on the numbers, because you can't abdicate that responsibility.
Yeah,
that's where it sometimes can go amiss.
Great, completely.
So for the business owners, that are listening in, so this is a question for them. They recognize they do have to do work on their business culture, but at the moment that they're also feel their mental health is struggling during the pandemic, and they're actually just feeling completely overwhelmed. What would your suggestion be for them? So they recognize there's a problem, but they're also feeling overwhelmed, completely stretched. Is it back to what you said there, or is it anything different?
Yeah, look, I've spoken to so many clients, so many businesses in the past couple of months, and I've experienced the highs, the lows. I've been the shoulder to cry on. I've been the person to have the high fives or the elbows now, as it is. But for mental health is something we all need to be very, very conscious of. And it can be just very little things. And if our mental health is affected, the first thing I think is that we need to address that. I think forums like this are great for it because it brings people together. I think there's, you always need to have a partner in crime. So you want to have a confidant that you can talk to openly. So I think you need to be, again, honest with yourself and be honest with other people that this is a situation you're in, and not be afraid to ask for help. And with that, you'll actually realize that there's such an amazing network around you that are there to support you, take you up, and then you can then you can work on your culture. And actually, by bringing yourself up and bringing that positivity back into your life, can actually just change the culture as you're doing it. Like when I talk to the team here, there's one thing that no matter how I'm feeling, that I do every day. So one of the first things I do every morning, whether when I'm walking to work or when I'm getting to work, is I will look at someone in the eye as they're passing me. It can be a complete stranger on the road, and I will smile. And I can guarantee you 99 out of 100 people that I pass will smile back. And that to me is the start of my day that really lights up my world, because one, that person could be having a really bad day and that can lift them up. Two, it actually lifts me up. So I see someone smile back at me, it starts me off, and I feel I get the, as I call it, the PMA, I get the positive mental attitude to start things off. And yeah, it's something I always do. And I would drive a different way to work, and it's maybe just an extra 2 minutes in my journey, take it just to make my mind work different, to make my mind think. I would wear my watch on a different wrist. And I guess that's something I learned through studying innovation, but it also helps with how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and little things like that can really help lift spirits. And, I guess, look, you also, as business owners and as people working with other business owners, you got to look out for your partners and keep an eye out for other business owners. And really, you should be able to spot when something's wrong and help lift people up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anyone who follows me on Twitter will notice that I go for the morning walk and do fur baby cuddles, or I bop the noses of dogs as I meet along the way, which is not the same as smiling as people, but normally involves smiling at people, and to try and invigorate that sparkliness and happiness into the day. But if people are listening in and are feeling overwhelmed, please reach out. We constantly are putting resources through the registration process and everywhere. If you are feeling overwhelmed, it's completely understandable at the moment. So I would like to, now this is one of my last questions that I have for you, Brian, and please we'll open up and other people hopefully have some questions for you. Which is very interesting, and you talked to me about it, and I've been looking online, and it aligns with everything that you said. And at this moment in your background, I really wish it would sweep across the background, but I bet you can't organise that.
It has something to do with geese, I take
it. What can geese teach us about culture and teamwork? And I'll do the geese flying across your background.
So I have a regular presentation I do for teams. I've done it across the world for many years now. But geese are a great representation of a team. So if you ever notice how geese fly, they fly in a V formation. And by flying in that V formation and that particular formation, they achieve 70% more than they would flying on their own. Mm-hmm. So that's the first piece. Second piece is if one goose falls out of line and actually comes out of the V formation, the two other geese will always fall out of formation with that goose. And I mean, this is all scientifically proved. And they will stay with that goose until they can bring it back, or until it dies. But they will actually stay with that goose and bring it back into formation. They will catch up with the actual the formation they were in, or they'll join a new formation. There's a lot of the geese that you can actually learn in terms of how they work as a team. And so I talk to the teams always about this. They always laugh the minute they see geese coming up and they see me talking about geese. But it's the same with cycling and the peloton, and how they work together as a team to achieve a goal. So it's I think the geese analogy I prefer, and I love going through that presentation with people, and think afterwards people they get an aha moment somewhere in it, and they realize that working together does make sense, and achieving things makes sense. Celebrating success makes sense together. Look, everything I do, I'm always about teamwork. It's so important. And no matter whether I was in a business, with just myself and somebody else, it's still teamwork. And whether I've been in a business where I've had, 11 managers underneath me with 100 employees under them, it's still teamwork. We are still all, striving for one common goal, and we should all be working together. And I don't know if servant leadership is something that I'm very for. I always believe that, the leader of a business sits at the bottom of an organizational structure and serves every single employee up the ladder. And that's the way I've always worked, is through that. I learned it a number of years ago by an MD in PayPal, who went on to be CEO of Walmart, and it's something I've lived by since the day he gave me that advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Brian. I know that every time I see the geese, I'm thinking about what you shared there. And I know living in Canada, when I did, it was the geese formations there were simply amazing, and it's very interesting. Very interesting that they V every time. Like, they just don't huddle and they go V. We're going to do it in a V.
It's about an hour. It's about an hour's presentation, just so you know, about geese.
That's what's great about these afternoon chats, is we can just go for as long or as short as they want. The one on Friday night went for 13 and a half hours. So just be glad we're not going to keep you for that long, Brian.
So how many bottles of wine was that?
I think a few, but not from me. Now, I would like to open up. Is there anyone else who's here with us today who'd like to contribute, share anything, ask Brian a question about anything? Oh, just unmute yourself, Tracy. Thank you for joining us, Tracy.
Thank you. Carla knows me and Brian knows me. I'm from rural Western Australia, so east of Perth, 3 hours east of Perth, just letting everyone know where I'm from, sort of thing. I was just talking about, listening to Brian talking about culture. I've been to quite a few conferences at TOA and that, and I'm always out there having fun with everyone and stuff like that. But also we involve our team. We've got 3 guys in the Philippines and we've got 2 ladies here. And it's just amazing. And every week, at the moment, since we're in a lockdown, we have cooking. Every Monday night, we do 3 dishes from the guys in the Philippines, and they tell us about what the meals they're doing. And then we do, next week, we're all going to be doing Aussie food, so the palmy and pies and other bits and pieces. So we're always involving them, stuff like that, always asking about their families and what they're up to and that side of things. So I just wanted to share that and say it's really good. And I've been sort of ghosting you guys for a while, watching what's been going on in your chats, and I've got brave enough to open up and say hello today. So.
Well, thank you for joining us, Tracy. So
Thank
are you giving you cooking lessons, are they?
Oh no, they just pick like empanadas we made last week, and this on Monday just gone we made tapas, and they're just picking it as if their local dish, they're asking us to cook them and stuff like that sort of thing. So we're learning both sides.
Have you cooked balut yet?
Oh.
No. No, I'm good for that. I've seen the boys do that one.
Or a sig.
No, not that yet. No. But no.
So the last time the time before I was in the Philippines, and I was doing a tour of all the offices, and my EA, who's absolutely awesome. I mean, she saves me so much time in the day. She asked me what I would like for lunch. I hadn't even thought about lunch, and she goes, "Okay, let me arrange something special for you." So I thought, okay, this will be nice. So she brings in this bowl. It looked like sort of a mince kind, and I'm not really a mince fan, but she brought in this meat and rice and chili. So I ate it and I thought, it's okay, actually. So then that evening I went back to the hotel and I sat down in the lobby and I opened up the menu, and there was sigsig, which she had told me it was. And I'm reading it. So it's, I think it was pig's brains or something, all this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Dinner I do not need tonight. But what was in it, I was just like, no.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But a very famous local dish.
I am warned. Thank you. Does anyone else like to offer anything? I know that Melissa, you wrote a few things in the chat area. Is there anything you want to jump in on there?
Hello, how are you?
Good. That's an amazing home office you've got there, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. I'm sitting at my dining table, actually. now that we've moved out of our offices. Yeah, I was just going to say that I support everything that Brian said. We had 6 staff remote for probably 5 to 6 years. And a lot of the things that are really important is that training aspect, your culture, including selling the benefits to your local team. So, passing on the benefits and selling it to the team was really, really important, because obviously there's a little bit of resistance there when you first start out. And it was interesting that, 5-6 years later, and also after they've built, really strong relationships of working together for such a long period of time, that if the overseas team were away, they'd often be sort of going, oh my God, where are they? So they formed fantastic bonds and really good relationships. And so the communication and the training is really key. And then also your systems as well. So you have to have your systems in place. A lot of people fail at sort of offshoring or remote teams, and often it's based around basically not having the systems in place. And also, sharing that culture and vision and what you want out of your staff. So KPIs, we used to set KPIs as well, and benchmarks. So that's really important, so that people know, along with that position description, what they're expected to do and where they're actually, what they're trying to hit as well. Because that's one of the things I found with one of the team members is like, when do you expect this work to be done? So setting those expectations and also getting team cohesion so that everybody feels like nobody's doing more than anybody else.
Awesome.
So yeah, strong teamwork.
And
really
thank you for sharing that. I think Carla shared in the chat group, oh God, what was it? It was Vibe or something like that.
Yeah, it's called Office Vibe. And we've just been on sort of in a lot of the workshops and the roadshows and stuff that TOA provide, and the information that's sent out in the webinars. And for some time I've been looking at ways to engage more with the team and I don't know, sort of, I'm a bit of an app fanatic, so I guess it's like I want to do these things that we're sort of told to do or guided to do and that are really important, but how do you do that really simply and sort of process driven? So we recently implemented Office Vibe. I've been looking for a while now. There's a few different types of platforms out there, but went with that just because it was like something's better than nothing, and the team's been great in adopting that. So it does weekly surveys, it pushes out pulse surveys out each week that are just automatically generated, and they then respond to that, and each of the questions sort of align to different areas of the business, and then you get rated and scored. So it's NPS scoring basically. And then we just this month we do team huddles every day, but we've just this month our one-on-ones are monthly, and we've implemented Office Vibe for that, which we tested out the process and sort of got them to just, I said, this is yours, so just figure it out, like, put into whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And so they've really taken that on board, and they've started building out one of the girls was quite amazing. She built out her own agenda for her one-on-one and listed all the items that she wanted to discuss, and in that it allows you to do goal setting and things like that. So I think it's that real accountability and that the ability to have a say around different things within your business. And some of it can be anonymous, so they don't have to put up who said that, even though we're building in our culture that we're an open book. If you've got something to say, you want to have a conversation, you want to bring something up. But it's quite interesting how much more open they can actually be in that situation. And what I also found was that with it, you can they can have a comment or suggestion on something, and then you can engage in conversation, and you don't actually know who it is that you're conversing with unless they want to take that offline. So it's kind of a mixture of having a conversation with somebody and being upfront and honest, but then allowing them to provide feedback of an overall state in an anonymous way if they choose to.
That's interesting. What was the name of the app again?
office vibe.
Office
So
vibe.
Tiny Pulse was one that was kind of suggested, I think is commonly used, but for us it didn't fit because of the number of team members you needed on it, and we're a small team. So it just seems to be a good way of engaging and getting some feedback, and our scores are great, so that means I'm like, yes, that could be why. But I think also it highlights areas that maybe you could be doing some improvement on, and happy to share what mine looks like. It gives you a whole dashboard and stuff like that. But I found that really useful to start, because I think what's important is, whilst for me, I was more like, okay, I think that everybody fits with our culture, and I'm feeling like everything's working well, but how do you actually measure that? So that was the piece that I felt was missing.
Carla, do you ever do any like ENPS with your team? Like across the board, the onshore and offshore?
That's what this does, yeah.
It does the ENPS, yeah.
Yeah, which is why I was looking for a platform that does that. Tiny Pulse was sort of suggested, and there's and you can do ENPS through different things, like just SurveyMonkey has some built in with it. But what I wanted to do was build in that whole process driven, like as far as it's regular, because I think the interesting thing around ENPS is that no one really tells you. I constantly was told that this is what you should be doing, but no one really tells you how to do it well. So what I like about a platform like what we're using is that it's systematic. So the pulse surveys can go out and they're non-touchable, and I just get an email saying, these are your results for the week. You can generate your own surveys, that like ad hoc ones. If there was something specific, let's say something that a project that I wanted to work on, I could ask questions of the team around that specifically and put a survey out to them, and they can respond on that. And you set your goals as an organization, and their one-on-one meetings that you have goals that are aligned to that. So it's sort of a performance-based app as well. So it's kind of a mixture.
One other comment I was going to make too is culture is, having a different culture and cultural sort of diversity. There is areas that you have to consider there in looking at how people differ in the way that they work or the way that they actually communicate as well. So that's another area to sort of consider in how that works with your team as well. So over the years, I found that I had to encourage that input coming from the team. So because they weren't as open and as forthcoming with their feedback about what they wanted to implement or do within the business, even though they might see certain things that were issues or ways that could improve, but then they wouldn't necessarily put it forward because they weren't used to doing that in their culture. So that's something that you really need to foster and encourage.
Does the anonymous feedback in the app help that, do you think, Melissa or Brian, or is it more than that?
We used to have our regular meetings and then really encourage our team to work together and to get feedback from everybody. So and encourage them and let them know that their views were really valued and their input was valued. So that was one of our, I suppose, our ways of sort of promoting our culture and what we valued in our business. So we promoted that a lot. So and tried to build their skills or their communication skills in that area.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Melissa.
That's right.
Was there anyone else have a question for Brian on Sandy?
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Sandy.
Thanks, that was a great presentation. I just wanted to talk about people work differently. So some people, work more effectively this way. So do you put much regard in things like the Enneagram or the DISC profiling?
So I've probably done every single profiling there is on the planet. It's not something we do on our teams. We don't do the disc profiling on that. We do it in TOA at an executive level, which is quite important because you need to have a good balance. And there's the likes of DISC, Myers-Briggs, and there's so many other ones out there. It kind of gives you a good feeling for how your senior level team work, how they work together, what makes them tick, where they will thrive and where they will fall down. And it also helps to actually bring a team together in terms of, I know who to go to for help. I know who the sounding board is. I know who the person in this meeting is the most reasonable. So it's very interesting. Like in our team, we actually did our 2020 strat planning last year. We came together as an exec team and we actually did the whole DISC profiling, and it was so interesting about how some of us were so alike, and then how others sort of stood out the others because they were put in different sides of the room, because we had an exec coach come and do it with us, and then there's just this one person that's out the other side of the room. So we know who the voice of reason is. So every time we have a meeting and we're making decisions at an exec level, it's check with Peter first.
Yes, I think it's important to know that the type of person, and some people you can talk to, other people might need an email, some people might need a couple of days. I think it's important.
It also helps you stop employing yourself over and over and over again.
Precisely. That's the key.
It's true. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to ask Brian a question?
I would. Hello. Brian, I am new to fostering a good team culture. I very much lived by the wing it mindset for a while, and I've had 2 new hires start in the last couple of months, and they are beautiful. They really have passion and enthusiasm for my clients, for my business, for their own development and growth. And it's making my other team member who's been with me for maybe a year now, it's really highlighting the fact that she does not have the same values and culture. And I certainly didn't give her the same starting point that the new ones have. I've really fostered the training and gentle easing in and processes mapped out for them. And, it's been a much smoother transition. But how do I work with the previous staff member to either assess if they're going to be the right fit or it's time to move them on?
So first of all, Christy, when you say, you wing it, you've got 2 new hires who have come in there. You can see by the way you talk, the passion, you talk about the passion in them. Your whole voice changed as you started to talk about them. So you got excited. So it's obvious that's the culture that you want. Yeah. That comes from you. I know you're saying you're winging it. And it may not be deliberate, but they feed from you, and they're feeding that from you as the leader of the business. And obviously, you're leading the business right if you're fostering the training, the coaching, the mentoring. You're giving your team the time. The employee that you're talking about that you feel may not be fully aligned. Remember what we talked about already. This could be the change that is upsetting that person. If there's new people in, they could be more skilled, they could be doing things differently. That's not the way you did things before, and that can create a little bit of resistance with that person. For me, and when that happens, I'm the first thing I will do is I have a conversation, and I would always, I think the one thing I like to do, and I don't know if you're in a position that you can do this, is have a walking conversation. So not in the office. If it's in the office,
they're offshore based.
They're offshore. Okay.
Yeah.
So then have a conversation with this person. Okay. Ask them, to tell you what's changed. Mm-hmm. Ask them to tell you, what's different and how the changes in your business is impacting them.
Yeah.
And then just explain to them what your vision is. and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And I think you'd be quite surprised once you ask their their opinion or their feedback. They'll become quite aligned.
Yeah.
And if they don't, well then you're going into a situation where does the person fit my business? I don't know how long this person's with you, how close they are with your clients, but they're questions you kind of need to ask yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, that they haven't done any real client contact, and perhaps that's been me subconsciously recognizing that they're not as invested. They're happy enough to work, but they don't have any commitment to my clients and care for them, whereas my new team members are straight away, they feel empathy for the clients and they're wanting the best for them straight away with things and looking after their interests. So it's, I will have that open conversation with her and see if we can turn it around. Thank you. The tricky one.
Those conversations are really hard. My heart's palpitating just already.
She did cry on me last week when we had a bit of a meeting because her outcomes weren't very thorough and her time to complete tasks were ridiculous, and she tried to snap back at me and challenge me on something, and it was an interesting process, but we did at least have a face-to-face Zoom through, and I gave her the option. If she didn't want to continue working with me, I would understand that, but I would very much like to try and have her continue. But if she doesn't want to work for me, she doesn't want to work for me, but she's moderately improved. But we have a team chat every day and we all sort of post an uplifting GIF first thing in the morning, and hers are always really depressing GIFs, like dragging yourself out of bed, wishing the day was already over, and all these sort of down things. It's like, you're just not punching with the rest. So
there's nobody that likes having difficult conversations, but do you know that it's one of the most important things to do? If you don't do it, people's thoughts change and they get more aggressive on themselves and they think the wrong thing. So by having a difficult conversation, everybody can feel better afterwards. Never prolong those conversations. Just have the conversation, open, honest, and then everyone feels so much better. And if you can foster an environment and a culture of feedback, that they are actually so easy to have.
Yeah. And it's, it's the same advice that we would give to our clients, isn't it? If they're venting about having trouble with an employee who's not the right alignment, then we talk them through it. So yes, take our own advice.
Yeah,
part of code tomorrow.
Part of leading our business.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we've got some areas we're strong at, we've got some areas we're weak at, but we can work on them and we can put structures and process in, even with those open conversations.
I'm building my team management muscle.
Yes. I know with my last difficult conversation, I actually had it completely scripted. It was like, you can't see, I was sitting there with the paper there with my completely scripted conversation, which I'm laughing about, but I was very stressed about. But the outcome was positive. The outcome has been wonderfully positive, but Nick Sinclair actually helped me with that conversation, added extra value add to help me with my conversation. But Nick Sinclair and Brian Walsh work together, and they're actually always ready to chip in advice in that area, which always assists.
So another thing that's just while we're talking about culture and that, another thing that's really, really important, and something that some people do, some people don't, but it's something we should all do, is all have learning plans in place for our teams. Not only does that help with the culture, it helps with retention, it helps with growth, and it also shows the investment you are giving in your team. And make sure they're clear and explicit. I Caroline, you're saying you talk about the EMPS piece. I think you're way ahead of the game in a lot of, there's so many firms that don't do that. They don't do the pulse check. And that's, it's across every business industry, but that is, so important. And, when you hear that, you feel like that's somebody that really knows what they're doing. They're in the game. They're employee centric. It's, it's great to hear it. But yeah, employee learning plans is also something that's really important.
Yes, thanks for that reminder, actually, because I was so focused on that EMPS stuff for some time that I feel like maybe we've dropped the ball a little bit on the learning plans. Whilst we've got various learning markers, I think that we could probably incorporate that into what we're currently doing and set it and structure it a little bit more.
Yep.
Apologies, I came in late, but that learning plan, is it the same as like a training plan? Is that the same theory or?
So there's people call it different things. I guess the learning plan I would call a personal development plan. Is generally what I call it, and it's a checkpoint on a monthly basis with the team. But you're setting out goals that, I often, the way I do it with the teams is, it's okay. What's the next 6 months look like for you? What do you want to achieve, and then what do we need to do for you to achieve that? And you set regular goals, regular KPIs. It all has to be written down, has to be explicit. So it's something that we aim for, and if it's written down, we generally achieve it. Mm-hmm. There's as I said to some people in the past who've had really ambitious plans, both on a personal level and on a professional level. I say write those plans down, keep it in threes, achieve things in threes, but take that and pin it on the back of your door. So it's something you see every morning, and I usually say the bathroom door. So it's something you'll look at every day, and it'll remind you what the 3 goals that you want to achieve in the next 6 months, 12 months. I can guarantee you will achieve them if you're looking at them every day.
That's a good idea. No, thank you for that. But you get really annoyed if your sister achieves it before you achieve it. Goals up.
Don't let her see your goals.
So not on the bathroom. Still sharing with your flatmates. So we've had a few more people join us, and really appreciative of everything we're sharing with us here today, Brian. We're here talking about culture and growing our people and working with our people. Now, does anyone have any more questions for Brian, or am I able to wrap it up now? No more questions. I've had lots of lovely feedback in the chat area, Brian, and it's possibly the longest webinar that you've sat in and contributed to. Now, before I get you to sing Advance Australia Fair, so for all of you who have joined us, Brian has just got his Australian citizenship, so we're all congratulating him for that. And that is a wonderful achievement. Is there any parting words of wisdom that you have for us, and how can people get in contact with you?
Parting words of wisdom. Look, I think I think these forums are awesome. The one thing I think the takeaways I've had over the last few months is, if it comes down to health and wellness, reach out, ask for help. You'd be amazed at the help that's out there and the support networks that are out there. In terms of culture, everybody has it in them to build an amazing culture. Culture is a passion of mine, always has been. And, when you see your culture grow and you can see the impact it has on people, it's nothing feels better than it. It's amazing. And if you want to contact me, you can contact me on brian.walsh@toaglobal.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So please connect.
And I'll send your contact details to everyone afterwards. And I know when you initially suggested speaking about culture, I did think of yogurt, and and is that what you had? Is that how you say it? Yogurt? I know
Yogurt.
Yogurt. And someone's actually posted in here a TED talk from someone who runs a yogurt company as well. So I did start at one emotional moment laughing at this, that a yogurt TED talk had jumped in to the chat area. So that was quite amusing. And you really want to sing it, don't you? I can tell that you really want to sing it for us.
I think it should be a joint effort.
It could be a joint effort.
I need support in this one.
Okay, look, it's not every day someone becomes an Australian citizen. So I've got my lyrics here, and I will start. I need you to give me.
Just ask a question first? Are you going to do both verses?
Saved by Marianne. Come on, Marianne.
Both verses?
Pardon?
Or both verses, or just the first verse?
No, just the first verse.
Okay.
Are you in for the rest of it, Marianne?
Yeah, I'll be here. I'm here. I'll sing with you.
Okay, good. That's good. Okay.
Come on, Carla.
I was just as you said that, Maya, I was typing in the chat. I think that's my cue to leave. I was about to hit the leave button.
We should all be very proud Australians.
That's it. My daughter's going, what are you talking about? You can sing with us. We're going to sing Advance Australia Fair.
We need to stop recording.
I think Amar is practicing. He's written his notes.
Got his notes. Here we go. There we go.
Thank you. Amar, off mute.
All right, team. Let's do this.
Us.
Okay.
The lyrics.
I'll put my headphones in so the rest of the household doesn't have to hear it.
You know, we could actually play the recording and then play the audio through this so we could sing it to the music.
Can you do that?
I know how to do that. I did it today. I shared my computer audio.
Go on.
Let me see if I could figure this out quickly.
Oh, look, and Amar's taken himself off mute. Marianne's. Hey, Chris,
Alan,
you need to take yourself off mute. Tracy, don't you leave us now. Don't you leave us now, Tracy.
Tracy, if I'm in this, you're in this.
You're in this too, Tracy.
I have my daughter, the singer, over here. So
excellent. Carla's doing the tech. Carl Bedwell, you need to take yourself off mute.
Where's Sam when you need him?
And Carl is sitting there and won't show his face. Does it mean he's not going to sing along?
Yourself off mute. Yes, go for it, Carl.
Are you in the bath, Carl?
I don't mind as long as
it doesn't matter where he is, as long as he sings.
No, I'm here.
Heather,
I really don't think you want to hear me sing.
Enabling share screening.
Oh, enabling share screening.
Screen sharing even.
Has that done it?
Is that like the Facebook? It's the Facebook. Yeah, it's like the Facebook. That's
the
right,
Facebook or the book face.
Thank you. See, that's like ChapSnap.
Now, let me see.
Here we go.
Share computer sound. Are we ready?
We are ready. Yes.
Right, I need to have my view of all of your beautiful faces over this side of my screen. Okay. I'm not going to be the loudest, by the way, so everybody's going to chime in here.
Tracy, you're still on mute. We can tell.
No cheeky mutes either here,
Carla,
guys.
you're in charge.
Okay. See if I can turn my volume up. Give me a nod if you can hear this.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are young and free. With golden soil and wild toil, our home is God by sea. Our love abounds in nature's our beauty rich and rare. In history's pages, let every stage advance Australia fair. Enjoy
Oh, that was hard.
That was pretty good.
That's got to be the most embarrassing webinar I've done.
Okay, wait till you see
figure
it
out how
played
to
back.
turn the screen share off now.
You just have to turn up to our regular sessions, Brian, just to see how hilarious they do get some nights.
Was that loud enough for you guys?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's good.
I'm going to get
I learned that
kicked
today.
out of my co-working space.
Thank you again so much, Brian, for joining us, and we will never forget you. And we really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today on culture, and we look forward to you coming back with Brian's bingo.
Our virtual bingo.
The virtual bingo, and hopefully you'll have some time in your calendar to come back and join us and share some other insights around building our team and building people, because I think, you know, it's something that many of us are interested in, but it is quite a challenge. And you and the team at TOA Global, and I do work for the team at TOA Global, but they've always consistently brought out a lot of useful, practical, understandable, relatable, realistic information around this. And I really appreciate both working with you, knowing you and learning from you, and appreciate you taking the time. You didn't think when I said it would be a 2-hour webinar, it really would be a 2-hour webinar, but we almost have made it. But really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.